You're listening to Popcorn Unscripted,
the podcast where we dive into movies and TV shows with no scripts, no filters, just real talk and plenty of popcorn.
I'm Bailey.
And I'm Dylan.
We're here to talk about everything we love
And love to hate
in pop culture. So grab your popcorn,
sit back,
and let's get this show started. Well, Dylan, it's episode 2.
There we go again.
Oh no, here we go again. Anyway, we're going to be discussing Part 2, Back to the Future Part 2 today. How are you feeling about that?
Definitely going to be interesting since the second movie definitely was an upgrade to the first one with all the aesthetics along with the set designs and everything for the 2015.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's actually something I want to tell you that I found out today. We have, as of right now, 26 downloads.
Dadgum.
Yeah. I was very surprised when we saw that. That's just, like, as of checking it just a few minutes ago. We had 26 downloads. So, just to take a moment to thank you people for giving us a chance and actually listening to us. It means a lot. Keep it up. Let's dive into this. So, first question. How do you think Back to the Future Part 2 compared to the first movie? Did it meet your expectations at all?
I think it went above, honestly, because you got to think this is in the 80s, this is what they thought 2015 was going to look like with the flying cars and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very interesting seeing how they designed everything around this whole sleeker design and all this futuristic tech that a lot of times we wish we had.
Oh, yeah. I definitely wish I had a hoverboard, even though I probably wouldn't be able to ride it at all.
I'll bust my face every single time.
I would so bust my face.
I can't even skateboard as is.
So, were you excited to see the continuation of Marty and Doc's story? Why or why not?
I really was, because I was looking, especially with how it left off on a cliffhanger in the first movie, so it was very interesting to see how they would rise to the expectation of the first movie with whatever they decided to come up with. Because it was very interesting adding the Mr. Fusion on the back of the DeLorean to where instead of using plutonium, he could just use garbage instead.
Which is very 2015-esque. But there was one thing that me and you, I don't guess, really noticed, is that the actor for Marty's girlfriend had changed in the second movie.
Yeah.
In the first one.
We did not know that until watching the Tales from the Future stuff that was in the DVD for the 25th anniversary. And after watching that, we saw a lot more of behind the scenes of what all was going on, including cutting out, they couldn't get the actor for George McFly's character because of disagreements. So they just cut him out entirely. Mm-hmm. That's why he's dead.
They literally, for the second movie, they just like, oh, he's dead. And then for like the 2015 version, they just had him hanging upside down from like a car accident or some kind of accident?
He threw his back out playing golf.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. No, it was Marty that had the car accident.
Yeah, Marty had the car accident. His father threw his back out while playing golf.
Yeah, and
I think he was three strokes under par.
Yeah, 3 strokes under par, yeah. But they had him upside down so that it wouldn't be so easy to tell that it was a completely different actor. But he also had, like, old man makeup on, too, so you wouldn't have been able to tell.
Yeah, not to mention the whole... the interesting part about the whole thing, honestly, was making 3 people on the scene at the exact same time that's the exact same person.
Yes, it was very impressive how Michael J. Fox was able to play so many people at the same time. He played himself, he played his son, and he played his own daughter.
The daughter one kills me because I could tell he started giving up with the voice and just started talking normal.
Like, I'm just done now.
Well, I mean, to be fair, do you blame him?
Not really. Because
I mean, that's gonna be a struggle.
Yeah, it has to be tiring to do like a high pitched voice as a guy.
It definitely is. And not to mention the fact that he's playing. He's having to switch between the makeups also.
Yeah, that too. So there's no telling how much time he spent in the makeup chair.
No kidding.
we feel for you, Michael J. Fox. We feel for you.
We definitely feel for you. That takes a lot.
All right.
Especially back then.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting into like the actual whole plot of the movie now. So how well do you think the film handled the complexities of time travel, especially with the alternate 1985?
I think it did a good job, aside from what we were told about was how would Doc and them be able to go back to 1985 from from 2015 if the time stream has already been altered when Biff went back.
Right. It was a very good point, because if you try to think about it, you're just like, wait a minute. Is this really how this is supposed to, like, you know, it kind of like makes you think a little bit.
Yeah, because it does seem like they will go back to the regular 1985, not this altered version. But if they had gone to 1955 while Biff was changing it, then that makes more sense.
But they didn't know that had happened until they went back to 1985.
Yeah. But granted, it may have been the whole disappearing thing, because they're not in the correct timeline anymore, might have been changed due to them traveling through time.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's what happened, is the alteration couldn't affect them properly like it did Biff's older self when he disappeared in the outtake. Mm-hmm. When he came back to 2015, because that he no longer exists in that timeline because it no longer exists.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe them traveling through time is kind of severed that path from that timeline.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But then again, I have no clue. I'm just trying to think of something.
I mean, I feel like them going through 1985, like, if you think about the three different sections of the movie, I feel like them being in 1985 kind of went on a bit too long.
It did. It dragged on a little bit, but then again, we're also trying to get information of what Biff has done to 1985, along with what he has done to history.
Or, well, what he had done throughout his life to make it an alternate 1985 with the almanac. Which, speaking of the almanac, what did you think of the use of it and its impact on the storyline?
I think it was done actually very well, because, I mean, what is there really to do with the almanac aside from
making a few quick bucks?
Yeah, because that's all the whole thing is just the different outcomes of different races throughout history from 1950 to 2000. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense of why that'd be the only reason why it could have been used.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a gimmick, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. It's just a thing that's there.
Yeah, it's just a thing that was brought back. But then again, Marty took the hoverboard from 2015 back with him.
He did, and then he ended up using it throughout not only the second movie, but he also used it in the third as well.
But then again, that didn't come in clutch until the very end of the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the only time that was shown. Oh, by the way, we still have this.
Yeah. It's like, this still exists.
But it definitely played a huge part in the second movie.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So what was the idea of changing the past handled effectively in the movie? Did it feel fresh or did it feel overused?
Well, to be fair, when it comes to time traveling, you can't really do anything about it with alterations in history, because we got to take into account the butterfly effect and all that stuff. Paradoxes. There's no telling what small thing that you've done in the past would screw up the future. Because, I mean, like, for example, in the, like what Doc said, is you could step on the blade grass and all of a sudden there's just giant monsters flying, insects flying around and all that. You don't know what is going to cause a change or what's going to cause a paradox.
Absolutely. Which we'll talk more about that when we get to the third movie.
Yeah.
Okay, but getting to, as we were talking about, like, Michael J. Fox playing all of these different parts as well as other actors, how do you think Michael J. Fox did do playing both Marty, his future son, as well as his other characters? Did the dual roles add anything to the story, or did it take away from it?
I think it did. I think it added on because of the fact that we are in 2015 seeing his family that he has with Jennifer. Yeah. I don't know why I went to say Lorraine.
I was thinking Lorraine too, and I was just like, wait a minute, that's his mom.
Yeah, I was stopping myself real fast. Nope, let's not go that route. But it's interesting seeing how much has changed with his view and everything in 2015 compared to his past self, because of what all he's been through, along with the wreck because of Needles, right, calling him chicken. And I really think part 2 impacts the third one heavily when it comes to that.
Oh, it does. It does.
Granted, we'll save more comments about the third movie for the third episode. Because we keep going back to the third movie every time. But we did watch it last, so it's understandable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And not to mention we had a debate about it.
Yeah, we did. We'll talk more about that.
In the third episode.
But,
see you next time!
It's over! We're moving on. No, I'm kidding. But we were talking about Biff earlier. So, how did the introduction of Biff from the future compare to the original version of the character?
He doesn't act any different, but granted, this is coming off of the altered 1985 from the first movie, when he's more calm.
Well, he's more put in his place.
Yeah, he's more put in his place, but for some reason in 2015, he's back to his old self, just as an old man now, calling butt heads and all that stuff and being just a
nuisance.
A nuisance, pretty much. So it's like, what... It does kind of like drive what has happened between 85 to 2015 that has caused him to revert back to the way he was, just an older self.
Retirement?
Maybe. That was dealing with Griff.
Yeah. Griff's, yeah.
It's kind of funny how Biff is played by the same... All versions of Biff are played by the same actor. So it's kind of funny.
It is. It is very funny, actually.
But, I mean, there's not much you can really do.
Yeah. Which, I kind of like that they were able to play different parts instead of getting other people to play those parts.
Well, they had to do that in some parts for stunt doubles, but then again, those are only parts where you can't see their face.
Right.
It's done very well, in my opinion, because it does make you think, oh, these are two separate actors. No, it's just the same person, but with a different makeup.
Yeah.
And actually, it looks...
And the makeup looks very well done.
Yeah, the makeup's very well done, and even the execution of the entire scene is well done.
Absolutely. I agree. So, moving on to the middle section, which is the alternate 1985. How did alternate 1985, with Biff's changes, feel? Was it convincing as a dystopian version of the town, or no?
Very dystopian, and it does explain some parts of it that didn't make sense at times. It kind of made sense later on when you find out that Biff owns the police too in Hill Valley. So hence why nothing can be done about say George's murder or anything. He owns everyone, so it's like you really can't touch him. Yeah,
he's literally like Kingpin from the Marvel comics.
Yeah,
that's literally what he turned into.
Yeah, he's literally untouchable because of the fact that he owns pretty much all of Hill Valley now. So it's like, do you take the risk of trying to stop him, or take a bullet in the back of the head because that's the way he plays?
Yeah. But that's just Biff being Biff. He wants all of the control.
Yeah, he wants all the control, including Lorraine.
Which, I don't think I really understand his obsession with Lorraine.
I never understood his obsession either.
That's actually kind of interesting to think about, because it's like, what made him want her specifically? Just because he was George McFly's girl, or just to spite George, or was it for some other reason?
Well, heck, even before George, he was still, like, desperate for her specifically, even back then.
That's true.
Because when she had nothing to do with him, he was still hitting on her, and yet Marty had changed it to where she never met him after her dad hit him with a car.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still obsessed with her regardless of George being around Lorraine regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's wonder, what is his obsession with Lorraine specifically?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So another question, how did the alternate timeline contribute to the overall tension and stakes of the movie?
Definitely put more stakes, honestly, especially with the fact that Biff, his older self, did inform his younger self that there may be a time a scientist, aka Doc, or a kid ask him about the almanac specifically to then take them out permanently. And it just so happens to be Marty the one that asked him.
Yeah.
So it's more so, do you stay in that dystopian time and then get a bullet? Or do you actually take the risk of getting the information and then going back to fix it?
Well, if you think about it, it's not only Doc and Marty's lives that are at stake, but it's Marty's entire family that is at stake, because we saw his brother in an outtake, actually. We saw his brother coming out, and he was like all disheveled and drunk or high or whatever it was.
Yeah, and not to mention, it was more so like, I don't know how to put this. He had basically hit rock bottom entirely. And not to mention, he even gave grief to Marty about even still being around Biff and questioning why he is still talking with Mom or Lorraine.
Well, no, because I remember in the outtake, he's like, "You're back? Well, how are you back? Why are you back?" Because apparently, I don't remember where it was from, but apparently they had sent Marty off to, like, Switzerland or something.
Oh, I thought he was referring to Lorraine.
Well, no.
Because he yells
Marty
at Lorraine
and his
about
mom were, like, having, like, a spat, I guess is what you would call it. And then that's why Marty was out of the country. So his brother was surprised that his brother had come back into the country and that him and his mom was talking.
Okay, that provides more context.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same sense when he was yelling out when he came in yelling at Lorraine, and then he mentioned about the Switzerland thing. I thought he was still referring to Lorraine.
He was saying something about sending him back to Switzerland.
Because the reason why I think that is because of the fact that Lorraine does then immediately after say, we have the funds for it and everything. So I thought he was referring to her. I didn't realize he was referring to him.
Well, I think he was probably referring to both of them.
It may have been. They may have been both on it, but
he was referring to all of her kids, though, not just Marty. Because we don't know what happened with his sister. We don't even hear about his sister now that I'm thinking about it.
True. Well, it may have been said, but we just don't remember.
Because I think I remember about somebody being in jail.
Oh, yeah. She was in jail.
No, that's Lorraine's brother that's in jail.
That's right.
Lorraine's brother's in jail.
Oh, we're also thinking of when he went to 2015 because Doc was mentioning about his daughter going to break out the son.
Yeah.
And they both end up getting in jail.
Yeah. So we don't know anything about what happens to Marty's sister specifically.
Yeah. So it's still up in the air.
Nor his brother in the actual cut of the film.
Yeah. I think that scene should have stayed.
Yeah. Because it shows, like, it's not just Marty that's affected. It's also his family. His whole family is affected by this. And it changes everything.
Not to mention, it gives context of where that timeline's Marty is also. If that's the case. Because then, where the heck is the original Marty in that timeline?
Well, he's in Switzerland.
He's in Switzerland, yeah. That's why he doesn't have to worry about bumping into himself by accident. Yeah. And Doc is in an insane asylum. So he's covering on both. Those two things are covered on both fronts. But then there's the 55 version that when they head back, and then they really got an issue.
Yeah, then they really have to kind of tiptoe everywhere.
Even though they kind of break that rule a couple of times.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Well, more so Doc this time, because Marty, all he did was take a door to the face.
Yeah, he really...
He never really interacted with his past self that was in that timeline.
Yeah, which was actually very funny.
Yeah, which is it's kind of funny. The only person knocked Marty out is his own self.
Yeah. All right, now we're gonna go on and talk about the DeLorean specifically in the film. How did the upgraded DeLorean with its hover capabilities add to the film's creativity and imagination?
I think it did a good job of interpreting what flying cars were able to do in the 2015 is what they thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think, though, the flying capabilities could have been used more.
Yeah, I think so too.
They weren't used a whole lot whatsoever.
Which then again, it wasn't really shown that much during like the 1985 section and then in the 1955 section. Both of those weren't really shown very well, except for in 1955 when Doc was trying to get to Marty so they can get the almanac back from Biff.
Yeah.
From when they go through the tunnel.
Yeah, that was the only time really in the 55, and then
because if you think about it, it really wasn't used that much aside from that section and then the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I think but then again, we also have to take into account this is 1955. To be fair, they shouldn't be having a DeLorean to begin with.
Right.
So it just saying, oh look, there's a flying DeLorean. I don't think it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we can see why it was not used a whole lot, but at the same time, it was barely shown.
Yeah,
aside from just very like key points storytelling wise, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, the hoverboard got more sections than that.
Yeah, it really did. You actually see a whole lot more of the hoverboard than you do a flying car.
Yeah,
surprisingly enough.
So it's kind of interesting how that is.
All right, so how does the movie incorporate the concept of time travel into everyday life, such as with the 2015 version of the McFly household? Like, do you think that they still do time travel even in 2015, or do you think time travel no longer exists?
Well, to be fair, time travel wouldn't exist really
because think about how 2015 is and what the technology is in 2015. It's like way ahead for even what we are today in the real world.
Yeah, it's very ahead, especially with the whole aesthetic wise and everything. The holographic Jaws for Jaws 19, which is kind of funny.
That shark still looks fake.
Texaco, the sleek kind of design for the futuristic cars and everything. It's very interesting, and if it was because time travel is kind of just normal, at the same time, it doesn't seem like it because it feels like it'd be more common knowledge, but it doesn't seem like it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because Doc is still trying, okay, we still need to be careful of everything. Do not talk to your future self and everything. It's like, is this not common now?
Yeah. That's actually a very interesting take.
Or is Doc the only one that still has that knowledge and everything that'll keep it secret?
But I think that also kind of ties in with the third movie as well. All of that kind of ties in, and it all ties together.
Mm-hmm.
But getting into visuals and special effects, how well did the special effects hold up in part 2 compared to the first film, or even just the differences between 2015, 1985, and 1955?
I think the second one used a lot more special effects that did not age well.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with the whole flying aspect of the DeLorean.
Yeah.
I think that's why they didn't show it more times than they needed to. Is because the CGI for the flying car wasn't that good.
It wasn't
in certain spots.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it was like a normal like background and everything, it looked actually just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it was flying through the sky with all these other flying cars, that's where you could easily tell this did not age well in this part.
Yeah.
And because a lot of parts, it did look good, and then just some other parts, it did not look good. But then again, it was because there's all the other stuff around it that was also flying in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, the Hill Valley sign floating and everything, that looked perfectly fine.
It did. It actually did.
But then again, I think that's because they had it on a string.
Maybe.
It was just either cardboard or foam or something like that. That way it would be easy to replicate it floating.
Yeah.
Just doop, doop, doop. Just like little tugs on a string.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Compared to hoisting probably this like body frame of a car, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. Were the hoverboard chases and future city scenes visually impressive? Do you think those were actually pretty impressive for the time when they shot this film? I honestly think so.
I agree. The scene looks really well and well done, everything, especially with the whole sequence of the hoverboard also. Especially the fact that seeing in the Tales from the Future, seeing it from a different perspective, we can see how that was done, and it actually makes it seem like they were actually floating and everything.
Yeah. It was actually very neat to see how they actually did it behind the scenes, too. It was very, very neat.
The only time they used CGI was when they first show the hoverboard floating it when someone's not on it. That was the only time they used CGI for it. Like when Griff shook his out of that case, that one you could tell it was CGI. But then when they grabbed onto it, it was a physical board and not a fake one.
Which is very interesting. Very interesting. So, did the time travel effects feel magical or more mechanical in this sequel?
I would say more magical in a way.
Yeah, I can agree.
Because we no longer see the flaming wheels anymore. We just see it just hovering in the sky now.
Yeah.
When they travel through time. And
although when they did go into 2015, we did see strips of flames whenever it disappeared in the sky.
That's what I mean by it. It's the floating flames in the sky. And then when it got struck by lightning, we actually saw we saw the trail of fire, and then it turned into smoke immediately. Which I think was actually kind of cool of how the fact that it does represent, hey, something happened with the DeLorean when that lightning struck it and caused something to break. Which was then given to us in Back to the Future Part 3. Because the fact that instead of being a straight line now, it was curved, almost in a circle when he went back
almost
back
as
in
if
time.
He had spun out.
Yeah. Which I think was actually a cool take on that, is saying Doc lost control completely of the DeLorean at that moment. Which I think was really well.
Which he technically did.
Yeah.
I mean, the flux capacitor had too much power in it, so it's like screaming I don't know what to do with this excess power.
It's almost like he hydroplaned in the air.
Yeah.
Which I think was kind of funny, honestly, at the time, for a moment. But the spectacle of it doing that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, getting into the themes of the movie, how does the movie tackle the idea of destiny and choice, especially with Biff's rise to power?
I'll let you go first with that one.
You let me go first?
Yeah.
So, clearly we see that Marty was about to make a choice first with the almanac. He was just he was going to take it back himself and make money off of it. And then Doc was like, no, this could drastically change your future. This could, very much alter your future.
Yeah.
And so Doc talks him out of it. So Biff, of course, takes that idea and he just runs with it. He takes it back to his past self, and it's hey, you do this, you'll be the richest man in the world.
Which
and then that choice then impacts Biff's future, and then, so on and so forth. And it just changed Biff's destiny.
But yeah, and it kind of, in a way, technically killed his 2015 version.
Yeah.
Because he no longer exists in that reality anymore. And that version of him is no longer existent.
Because it changed. He went back and changed himself. So therefore, he is non-existent.
Yeah, because even when we see the outtake and everything, you can tell he's in immense pain because of that. And then when he hits the ground, he's gone. He never existed.
Because now he's in, a different part of that reality, where he's I'm the owner of all of this now. He's probably in some kind of, chamber or something. Lord knows what 2015 would have looked like with Biff's rise to power in 1985.
I would have been very curious if we saw the 2015 variant of that change. I would have been very curious.
That would be very interesting.
Because it makes me think, would they still have that technology, or would it be significantly downgraded?
There's no telling, honestly. I actually don't know.
Because it seems with Biff, he wants to destroy anything that he just wants. and he doesn't really have anything really advanced whatsoever when he comes back in 1985, aside from maybe a bigger TV, and that's it. There wasn't really anything different aside from just, oh, hey, I have the money now, I'm just gonna buy this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna buy it all. And then you have the choices that Marty and Doc make as well. You see the choices that Marty had made in his life, and then you see the impact that his family had. I mean, you saw what his boy was doing. His boy was a pansy.
Yeah, and it was kind of entertaining to watch his past self see his future kid, and it's like, oh my god, he's a freaking wuss.
He's a freaking wuss. It's like, this is my kid? There's no way this is my kid. I wouldn't raise my kid this way.
But Grant, he doesn't know about what happened to his future self. Only Jennifer knows.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe Doc. Well, Doc does know because but he just refused to tell Marty.
Yeah, he didn't want to tell Marty because he didn't want Marty to be like watching his back or whatever.
Yeah.
You know. So those choices definitely impacted the characters, I think, as well, even in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
So does the movie suggest any moral lessons or cautionary tales regarding meddling with time? Honestly, I think that second one, yeah.
I think so, the second one, yeah.
That second part of that. Like, it definitely does, because the second movie shows you what could happen if something in your future were, well, actually, no. I take that back. If something in your past were to change, then your future also changes. But it also tells you the decisions you make affect your future in big dramatic ways. Like there's points in time where you have to make a decision, and that decision could impact you for the rest of your life, and you never know. But getting into more humorous things of the movie, how did the movie balance humor with serious consequences of messing with time?
I feel like there wasn't much humor with this one, honestly. It was more serious most of the time.
It was, I agree. There was some funny moments, of course.
It was very few compared to the first movie.
Yeah, I agree. I highly agree.
Because, I mean, then again, they had higher stakes with this one with how much stuff they were altering and everything. I think that also leads into why the third one, there was hardly any humor.
I feel like the third one had more humor in it than the second one.
It may have,
for
honestly.
Sure.
It's just weird how once the I think it's more so just the fact that, well, we're seeing this alternate version of 1985, so we kind of have to be serious.
Yeah.
We might sprinkle in like a joke or two, that way to like, hey, lighten up the mood a little bit.
Yeah. But it's also showing, like, how serious it is when you're messing with time in general.
Yeah.
It's a very serious thing. It's a very, very serious thing. And you see that in a lot of time travel movies and TV shows.
I feel like that's the only thing that time travel movies now are fixated on is the consequence of using time travel, period.
Mm-hmm.
They don't ever see, like, the scientific route that Doc wanted to in the Back to the Future franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, we create time travel, but don't do it. We don't want to do this.
Then why did you create time travel in the first place?
Yeah, and then someone accidentally does the time travel and screws up history.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, then what was the point of making this thing to begin with if you're just going to say, don't go anywhere near it?
Yeah, absolutely. But did the film also rely too much on, like, the gags, like the hoverboard chase, or did it strike the right balance between comedy and drama?
Strike the right balance, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you definitely felt on edge while watching this movie, especially with Biff holding Marty at gunpoint.
Oh, yeah. I would say that's probably the most tense moment out of the whole film.
Yeah, especially when he's just mere seconds and then proceeds to fall for the oldest trick in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Biff is always fall for that gag every single time, and yet he made fun of George for
Biff, what's that?
Oh. Every single generation apparently falls for it.
It's so funny. It is so funny. But going back to 2015, we keep bouncing around, I noticed. But, I mean... What can you do?
Ironic, seeing the fact that they bounced around with this movie.
It's very fun. Yeah, that's very fitting. It's very, very fitting. So, how do you feel about the portrayal of 2015 in the movie? And did it seem futuristic or more like an 80s idea of the future?
It definitely gave the 80s idea of the future, honestly, especially with the different aspects specifically. Because the way of waitresses and stuff were being replaced by a
robot?
TV... No, not even a robot, a TV screen.
It was technically a robot.
I feel like more it's just a TV screen, really, just but just glitching out occasionally. Because it seemed like almost at the touch of a button, then the thing shot up with the Pepsi.
Yeah.
So it feels like they weren't really a robot. More so, it was just a TV, really, of someone just somewhat talking, but glitching out at the same time, and then just hitting a button for a specific thing.
Yeah. Which since you're watching the movie here in 2025, 2015 was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've already lived through that, so we were like, yeah, so it's definitely an 80s idea of the future. And the fact that that future was wrong, it's kind of funny.
They did predict a lot of stuff.
They did.
What they did say. They did say they went 50-50 with predictions.
They did go 50-50 with predictions. I remember that. Yeah.
But granted, there's not much you can really do when it comes to predictions. You're going to get majority of them wrong, or you're going to get some right. It really just depends. This isn't like a Simpsons thing, because that's the oldest joke in the book, that Simpsons predicts everything.
Yes. Even in today's time, they're just like, oh, the Simpsons predicted that. Oh, the Simpsons predicted that. I feel like it's more so, what's the word?
Being influenced by the Simpsons is because it was correlating it because of, oh, we've seen this somewhere before. Oh, it's more so like the copycat thing.
Yeah. So, moving on, how effectively did part 2 reference and build on events from the first movie? Did it feel like a natural progression?
I feel like it was, especially with them...
Especially with how it starts out, too, because it starts off right where part 1 left off. So it's kind of like a flowing progression.
Yeah, it definitely flows together when you watch all 3 in sequence, in my opinion. Each one, it basically carries on from the direct last movie. Mm-hmm. So I think in time flow, or flow-wise, when it comes to storytelling, it fits perfectly.
Absolutely. I agree.
Granted, they may replay a couple scenes to like incentivize what has happened, say, from the second movie. We got a flash... they replayed the sequence of Marty going back to 1985 from the first movie to lead up to him running up to Doc saying, I came back from 1985.
Like, Doc, I'm back.
Yeah, Doc, I'm back.
From the future.
So I think it definitely flows well together, but they do have these recap scenes to make it kind of feel like it doesn't.
Yeah.
But if you take out those recaps, it flows perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So... was the return to 1955 in the movie a clever narrative choice, or did you think it felt repetitive, like we had already seen this before, why are we seeing this again?
I think it was clever seeing the fact that we are seeing the movie from a different perspective entirely compared to the first movie.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing from Tales of the Future, is it has never been done before. Mm-hmm. So... that was a great idea at the time to do, and I think they executed it perfectly.
I think they did too.
Especially with the whole concept, idea of doing double people in the same shot. Mm-hmm. Like old Biff leaning against a tree, but his younger self is messing with the car.
Yeah.
And doing that. I think it was done perfectly, because now we see of what everything was leading up to the dance. Mm-hmm. From seeing it, what Biff was doing, and also getting reference from the guy that was haggling Marty in the future. Mm-hmm. We see him, that he was actually the one that repaired Biff's car.
Yeah. And
that was another outtake of him saying, this old geezer tried to rob me out of $300 for fixing his car.
Yeah.
And we saw that.
Yeah, I agree. And so how did the ending set up for Back to the Future Part 3? Were you excited for the conclusion?
Part 3.
Yeah, how did the ending of Part 2 set up for Part 3?
I think it's set up really well, seeing the fact that we come back to Marty coming to Doc to try and get back to the correct time period after Doc has been sent to 1885 that was left by him by a note.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads off perfectly into the third one, and it's very ironic seeing the fact that they were filming both movies at the same time.
Yeah, that's very true.
So right after they finished the filming for the second one, they immediately started filming the third.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually really well done, seeing the fact that we already had the trailer for the third movie right there in the second movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was always wondering why that was. Well, that's because they had already had the third film partly filmed out. So
yeah,
it was like...
Well, they actually filmed the whole movie.
Yeah.
They had already had it filmed and everything. They just had to do editing to the third part after finishing the second one.
Uh-huh.
So I think it was very smart of them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That way you know, hey, we are doing a third one. This isn't being on hold or anything. We are getting it to you as fast as we can.
Mm-hmm. So, well, as we're wrapping up here, so what was your favorite scene of Part 2 and why?
I don't know if I have a really favorite part specifically of the second movie. Because I enjoyed every part of it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really a hard scene to pick specifically that I liked more.
I honestly think for me, it's the hoverboard chase.
I can see that.
I think that's probably my favorite. Just because that's just such an iconic scene in general, is the hoverboard chase, because it's the most referenced scene out of all of it.
Yeah, not to mention it changes the first movie up entirely. Instead of him crashing into manure, he crashes into a building this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens to be right in front of the police.
Yep. Where he's then taken away to jail.
Yeah, he's apprehended and everything.
So how did the cinematic scene, the chase, and final confrontation with Biff compare to other action sequences in the movie?
I think it was equal tense, especially with Biff basically seeing Marty every single time he went to go and grab the book. Because you would think, oh, he's not going to notice. No, he notices every single time and catches Marty off guard every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very well done of them to do that, because it makes it seem more tense of getting back that almanac.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when he was on the hoverboard in the tunnel and trying to get away.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Still find it funny he gets hit by the same manure truck both times.
Yeah, that's like a constant thing. Which even in the third movie, manure.
One time in 1955, both times he's ran into manure.
Yeah, he did that twice.
It's the exact same truck he ran into both times.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's like, how much manure is this person carrying around with them?
A lot. Apparently.
And more so, is it the same manure he crashed into that earlier day, or is this fresh manure too?
Nobody knows. I don't think anybody knows.
I don't know.
I would think it's the same manure, but then again, that would have taken a while to get out of his car.
Because this is a whole separate day too.
Yeah.
This is whole separate day. So if he was carrying around the same exact manure from the past day,
it could have been a whole truck of new manure. It probably was.
Well, it's more so, where are you carrying this from if you're carrying the exact same manure? Where's this going to?
Well, you have to think of where they are in Hill Valley as well. They're probably more on like the outskirts of the town, where like a bunch of farms and stuff are.
Maybe, but it's like we barely see that. We don't
really see that at all.
Yeah, we don't even see any other towns except for Hill Valley.
Yeah.
Heck, where Marty lives is 9 miles away from Hill Valley.
Yeah.
From when we saw in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's safe to say that there's no towns.
Well, no, where the mall was going to be was 9 miles away from Hill Valley.
No, the Lion's Den, that's where he lives. In the first movie, when they were still building where he was going to live in 1985.
Yeah.
And that was 9 miles away from where Hill Valley. So we know at least there's
true,
no towns for at least 9 miles at least.
Yeah.
But how far out is the next town exactly?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question.
It's kind of like Hill Valley is its own little area, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like isolated.
Yeah, it's isolated from everywhere else. Maybe that's why we only see Hill Valley.
Maybe.
Because we know for at least 9 miles, there's nothing. Aside from where Marty lives.
Or at least in 1955.
Yeah, 1955. And there's no telling how much that's changed in 1985.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, hell, we don't even know if Biff did anything. Like, if he put any more up around when he took over in 1985.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We have no clue what he's built.
Well, no, we do, because Marty did end up going back home, but though that black family was in his home.
Yes, and they were the only ones still in their homes on that street.
Yeah.
All the other ones were sold off.
Yeah.
Or
abandoned,
yeah. But we never see any other house or any other building, really. Mm-hmm. And heck, we don't even see the school. We only hear that from Strickland that it burned down. We see an outtake that was kind of bad.
Yeah.
The school basically destroyed and still on fire.
Being torn down.
Yeah, so it's like, did he put up anything around Hill Valley in the time that he is taking power, pretty much?
Yeah.
Or is he pretty much just left the same, but just torn down what he hated and then built up his
empire.
His little empire where the old clock tower used to be.
Yeah.
Because it looks like, other than that, everything's pretty much still the exact same, just more destroyed, dirty, and graffitied.
He wouldn't take care of it.
Yeah, he wouldn't take care of it. But would he not put up something like around the area at least of more like infrastructure for making more business, more profit?
Nobody knows.
Because if it's his territory, he can set up whatever tax he wants on the buildings.
Yeah, especially if he owns the police.
Yeah, so it's more like, did he just miss a business opportunity for more money in the process there? Mm-hmm. But then again, he's still got the almanac, and it's only 1985. He's still got a few more years of that still being useful.
He still has 25 more years, yeah.
Yeah, he's still got more years for that thing to be useful to get more money.
Actually,
but at the same time, if once that's over, he still has more money. He can get more money by doing that.
Yeah.
So it's like, after, what's his goal, really?
It's like he wasn't done yet. He still had until the year 2000 to be making money.
But then again, we also know how far the almanac goes in 2000. It could stop at any moment in 2000, or it could go all the way until December.
Yeah, I would imagine December of 2000 is where it ends.
Yeah, but we also got to take into account how long each gamble is for the stuff.
Yeah.
And
true.
Not to mention, we have to think seasons also.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
games.
What moments or aspects of the film didn't work for you or felt weak?
For aspects that didn't work out, really, I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't really know either. I felt like all of it was pretty strong.
And used the appropriate amount that it needed to be, along with fitting into story-wise fittingly.
Yeah.
Because I was about to say that pack of mints or something that he took from Biff's office in 1985, and it changing to...
It was a matchbook.
It was a matchbook, okay. The matchbook, and then it changing to his auto name. But then again, that makes more sense because it's being fixed.
That's how he knows it was fixed.
But he also pulled out but then again, he already had the newspaper of George McFly's death in his pocket. Death in his pocket. So he already knew that he could use that to see the change. Mm-hmm. And then...
But he also ended up using the matchbook to burn the almanac as well.
That's right.
He also did that.
So the matchbook plays a significant role regardless of what... Mm-hmm. So even if tell the change happened, or to light the almanac on fire so it never happened. Mm-hmm. So it played an important role regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. So, giving out our final thoughts here, how would you rate Back to the Future Part 2 compared to the first movie? Was it a worthy sequel?
I believe so.
I would say it was too.
I think it was a worthy sequel.
Even though my mom wouldn't agree. She hates the second one.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do consistently agree that the second one definitely improved off of the first one, including in details and everything.
Yeah, it just has more of like a serious aspect than it does than the first one.
It definitely feels like everything is on the line in the second one compared to the first one, which it technically is.
Yeah, if you really think about it.
But Graham, I think the third movie has more tense, more so of a time frame wise compared to the second one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because while the second one, they can just somewhat just keep trying over and over, while the third one, they kind of they have no choice but to get right the first time. Which I think, but granted, if they keep going back in the second one over and over to try and do it correctly, they're going to create so many different versions of themselves, and that's going to create a massive paradox.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's only if they interact with each other.
Well, if they were to interact with each other, then it would cause a paradox. Very much so.
But Graham, we've already seen the Doc talking to himself. It didn't create a paradox.
Well, then again, the Doc from 1955 didn't see his face.
That's true. Well,
which in Doc intentionally didn't show him his face because of that reason.
Yeah, because a lot of times he was looking up so he couldn't be able to be seen a lot easier. But yeah, I can see doing over and over retries would definitely cause a lot more issues. And actually, who knows, it might have been an idea that they had originally for the second one, because if they keep trying over and over to get it right, the amount of them trying to do this, that's going to cause even more issues, because they're trying to avoid their past selves, along with trying not to get caught by Biff trying to get it back.
Yeah.
And yet, if he sees all these different times that he's about to get stolen from, he's going to be more on guard.
Yeah.
He's going to have his guard a lot higher. That way he can be prepared if someone tries to.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's actually kind of interesting concept there.
It is. So, finishing with this last question, would you recommend this movie to someone who hasn't seen it, or do they have seen it? Or do they need to watch the first film? Or do you think they'd have to watch the first film first before they watch the second film?
You might have to watch the first one in some aspect to get some kind of knowledge for the second one. Seeing the fact that you are seeing the same movie from the first one and just from a different perspective and half of the second movie, because otherwise you have no context of what's going on, especially since there's two Martys at the same time in the 55 second. And you wouldn't
really know why there's two Martys there if you didn't watch the first film.
Yeah, especially with Doc, him having to clarify to Doc, they're about to jump me. Well, get out of there. No, the other me, the one that's on stage singing Johnny Be Good. Great Scott! You'll have to have that context of what's happening from the first film to understand why they need to avoid the second one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
But heck, you only need a small amount from the first one to really understand what's going on in the second one.
Well, if you want to be technical, you kind of need the whole film, or the whole 1955 portion of the first film to understand.
Yeah, Graham, the second one only uses the prom part, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only part that we see from a different perspective. But you will need some context from the 55 part in the first movie to understand the 55 parts in the second film.
Yeah, I agree. That's all for today's episode of Popcorn Unscripted.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow us on Twitter at PopUnscripted.
And let us know your thoughts or any suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And if you'd like to support the show, check out our donation page.
Your support means a lot and it helps keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep your popcorn close
and your movie critiques closer.
Thanks for listening to Popcorn Unscripted.